Dubro Suspicion Files.
All right, let's open this one up. Welcome to Case File 47, The Dream Hacker. Now, this is an investigation into a claim that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. The idea that our brains, and yeah, even our dreams, can be hacked. We're going to peel back the layers here and separate the science fiction from the science fact, and what we find might be a whole lot stranger than you think.
And just so we're clear, this isn't some conspiracy theory. This is our first piece of evidence. Back in 2021, the Molson Coors Beer Company actually announced this campaign. I'm not kidding. Their goal wasn't just to catch your eye during the Super Bowl. They were actively trying to get their brand into your head while you were asleep.
And that, right there, that's the question that kicks off this whole investigation. I mean, it's one thing for a company to try and broadcast a message into our minds, but what happens when that technology gets flipped around? What happens when they start pulling our thoughts and our data out?
So let's start with what we know is 100% real. Exhibit A in our case file, the corporate intent. How in the world did Coors actually plan to pull this off?
Well, the method they used is called targeted dream incubation, and it's actually pretty simple. Here's how it worked. First, right before bed, you'd watch this short, kind of hypnotic video full of mountains and waterfalls, and of course Coors beer. Then you'd play this specially designed 8-hour soundscape all night long. And the result? According to their own DreamLab trials, it worked. People reported dreaming about, you guessed it, Coors.
Now you can probably imagine the scientific community was not thrilled about this. Dozens of sleep researchers signed an open letter warning that this was a really slippery slope. But Dr. Bob Stickgold from Harvard Medical School, he didn't mince words. He called it an attempt to, quote, weaponize sleep. A line, in their view, had definitely been crossed.
Okay, so we've established the motive. Now let's move on to the means. Does the technology to actually decode our minds even exist? Let's take a look at the evidence.
So for our next exhibit, let me tell you about a 2-time Super Bowl champ, Logan Ryan. Now, Logan was using a commercial gadget, this headband called Focus Calm, to try and get a mental edge on the field. He was literally training his brain, but he had no idea what that little device was actually doing.
And here is where the story takes a turn. The company behind the device, Brinko, had some quiet funding from entities linked to the Chinese government. But that's not even the kicker. Their own developer documents showed that the headband was collecting his brainwave data, his raw EEG data, and sending it to a server every half a second. When Logan found out, his people said he was, quote, unbelievably freaked out. And can you blame him?
Okay, so that's a consumer device out in the wild. But what's happening behind closed doors in the lab? Well, let's head over to Kyoto University in Japan, where some scientists ran an absolutely mind-blowing experiment to see if they could literally read dreams. Here's how they did it. They had people sleep inside a massive MRI machine that was scanning their brain activity. Then they'd wake them up over and over and ask, hey, what were you just dreaming about? They took all that data, the brain scans and the dream reports, and fed it into an AI. And what happened? The AI learned to predict what category of thing the person was dreaming about, just by looking at their brain scans. They were, for all intents and purposes, recording a dream.
And it doesn't stop there. Over at the University of Texas at Austin, they took it a step further. Researchers had people just silently think about telling a story, and an AI was able to translate those silent, internal thoughts into text just from the brain scans. Look at this. The person heard the phrase, I don't have my driver's license yet, but the AI decoder produced, she has not even started to learn to drive yet. It's not a word-for-word transcript. It's getting the meaning, the gist of the thought. It's insane.
Okay, so the evidence seems pretty overwhelming, right? Companies want to get in our heads. The tech to read thoughts is in the lab. It sounds like the dream hacker is real. But in any good investigation, you have to challenge your own assumptions. So let's play devil's advocate and see if this sci-fi story holds up.
Here's problem number 1, and it's a big one. The hacker we imagine in the movies, they use a laptop, right? Maybe some tiny secret device. The scientific reality of that mind-reading tech? It's a functional MRI machine. We're not talking about a headband. We're talking about a 15-ton, multi-million-dollar magnet that takes up an entire room. The idea of someone secretly pointing one of those at your bedroom window is, well, it's just ridiculous.
And that leads us to the fatal flaw, the kryptonite for this whole non-consensual mind-hacking idea. The technology only works if you're a willing participant. The AI has to be trained for hours and hours on your specific brain. It can't just read a stranger's mind. And get this, the researchers found that if the person in the machine actively resisted by, thinking about other stuff, the results became totally unusable. In other words, your own free will is a perfect, 100% effective firewall.
So, case closed, right? The sci-fi hacker isn't real. We can all go home. Well, not quite. All we've done is debunk the movie version of the crime. We haven't looked at the crime that's actually happening right now. Remember Logan Ryan? His fear wasn't crazy. He was just afraid of the wrong kind of hacker.
Okay, this is probably the most important distinction we need to make. We tend to lump all these wearable gadgets together, but they are completely different. Your biometric trackers, like an Oura Ring or a Whoop band, they use little light sensors and accelerometers. They measure your heart rate, your movement, your temperature. They're measuring your body. But the Neuro trackers, the headbands like Muse or Focus Calm, they are consumer EEG machines. They are explicitly measuring your brainwaves.
So where's the real hack? It's not some sneaky virus or a piece of malware. It's hidden in plain sight, in the legal documents. I went and read the privacy policy for the Muse Neuro headband, and there it is, clear as day. We may also share this personal information with third parties, including advertising partners.
And that is the twist at the end of this case. The dream hacker isn't some shadowy spy in a van. The hack is being done by the company's own data science team. The break-in is called data sharing for targeted ads. It's not a bug in the system. It's a legal feature that you agreed to when you scrolled to the bottom and clicked I accept.
So why do we do that? Why are we so terrified by the dramatic story of a sci-fi hacker, but we're totally bored by the reality of a privacy policy? Understanding this little quirk of our psychology is the key to seeing the real fight that's coming for our own minds.
Well, it's a cognitive glitch called proportionality bias. Basically, our brains are wired for drama. The idea of our inner thoughts, our private world, being violated feels like a huge event. So our brains demand the cause that feels equally huge, a secret agent, a mind control ray. The actual cause, a boring checkbox buried in a 40-page legal document, is just too lame for our brains to take seriously.
But make no mistake, the threat is very real. And it's not just about companies reading our data. The next frontier is about writing to the brain. Listen to this chilling quote from Dr. Raphael Yuste, a top neuroscientist at Columbia. His lab isn't just watching brain activity. They can project images directly into a mouse's brain, making it see things that aren't there. He says, we can end up manipulating a mouse as if it were a puppet.
And Dr. Yuste is warning everyone that what can be done to a mouse today is coming for humans tomorrow. That's why he and a growing group of experts are fighting for a whole new category of human rights, called neuro rights. Things like the right to mental privacy, the right to your own identity and free will. These are protections designed for the world that is coming.
So, let's close the case file. Is there a dream hacker trying to steal your data? The answer, weirdly, is no and yes. The sci-fi hacker with the secret device is a ghost, a distraction. But the corporate data collector armed with your consent from a terms of service agreement, they are very, very real. The tech is moving from the lab to your living room, and the legal framework to exploit it is already here. All the evidence has been presented. Now, the judgment is yours.